And now Apple is giving a glimpse into its future. There is a conference in California to discuss all what Apple has to offer in future. We'll discuss that. And it's that time of the year when Apple teases its new features and gives a sneak peek into what all the new iPhones, Macs and iPads will have. Apple CEO Tim Cook has unveiled a few new products with some other interesting announcements. Take a look at this report.
Well, Apple's WWDC might be a developers conference, but it's the platform that keeps even general users hooked, because this is the place where Apple shows what it has up its sleeves for users across the globe. And after years, the conference witnessed a mix of software and hardware announcements. And the biggest of them all is the launch of Apple's HomePod speaker, which could dominate your living room, much like Amazon Echo and Google Home. It is powered by Siri and is aimed at making life at home simpler. But if you are planning to buy one, you need to wait a little because it's coming later this year at a price tag of $349 US. Siri is getting a new voice, one that'll be deeper and more natural. A male version of Siri is also getting a refresh. Apple intends to keep Siri at the front and center of the new Watch OS, which will learn your routine and make changes on the move. Tim Cook used the Apple keynote to show off new iPads and Macs. He also provided glimpses into coming versions of the software powering those devices. Like one of the features in the new version of the Mac OS will be the ability to stop unexpected videos from playing automatically on web pages. And for all you iPad lovers, Apple is coming up with a 10.5-inch iPad Pro, which offers room for a full-size keyboard, something the 9.7-inch model couldn't. Yet, it isn't as bulky as the 12.9-inch model. Last but not least, the new version of the iOS is coming to your iPhones this September. It'll sync your messages in the cloud and will have new features for organizing photos and creating shared videos. The new release of the iOS will also make iPads more efficient. Bureau Report, WION.
Now, to discuss more on this, we are joined by our in-house experts, Ankit and Sahil. First to you, Ankit, we know that HomePod has been unveiled. It will be, coming to the world markets in December for around $350. Are you impressed with HomePod?
See, when you get impressed with the product, that means you've used the product. So I would like to take my hands on the product. I would like to see how it performs, and then maybe I'll be able to have an opinion on that. But given by what the company has announced, given by the features that we get to see or we get to read on the website, HomePod, first, it comes at $350, which means it's expensive. Why? Because if you compare it with rivals like Google and Amazon, their products are relatively cheaper. The Google Home price is priced at $130. The Amazon Echo is priced at $180. Clearly, the Apple HomePod is priced like more than the double. And talking about the services that it will offer, so currently Siri works with, say, a couple of apps, maybe messaging, ride-hailing services, and for that matter, your infotainment systems. So before that, Apple needs to actually make Siri work with a lot of other applications, a lot of other services, before it actually jumps into the market. But given that it's coming in December, the new product is coming in December, so Apple has a couple of months actually to make Siri work with different devices, different services to actually compete with Google and Amazon.
And take us through some other, few things which Apple has showcased at its WWDC conference in California.
Right, so this was one of the biggest highlights of the event, the HomePod. Besides that, so basically the company uses this event to make software announcements. And it not always happens all the time that the company is making hardware announcements at the same time. It happened back in 2013 when Apple used the WWDC event to make hardware announcements as well. So, like we know, Apple announced a couple of other devices, new Macs, new iMac with 4K display. But another interesting development that happened was iPad with 10.5-inch screen. So which allows for a comfortable full keyboard, that you can have a full keyboard with that, which earlier 9.7-inch would not allow you to do that. We had that over 10-inch display, the iPad with a 10-inch with over a 10-inch display, but that was a little bulky, the 12-inch one. So the 10.5-inch iPad Pro is another development here, like for all the iPad lovers who wants to have the comfort of the laptop at the same time. So it's a good, because it can accommodate the full keyboard as well. So this is another development. Then iOS 11 is coming. So the company has announced it, teased it, but it will come in fall, which means September onwards. So yeah, it will. So a couple of highlights of the new iOS system that's going to come is going to be, it will message all, it will back up all your messages in the cloud, which was not possible earlier. And at the same time, the Apple Maps will be improved. It will give you guidance on the highways, lane by lane guidance on the highway. And a couple of interesting developments that we'll get to see in iOS 11.
And Sahil, you have been tracking this from very long time. So do you think that the future of Apple will be as glorious and as big as its past was?
Well, yeah, in order to understand the future, I think we have to look at Apple's history first, because Apple's always, been an industry disruptor. Every time it's come out with a new product, it's always, shaken the tech world to its very core. Now, whether it was, let's say, the Macintosh 128K in 1984, whether it was, let's say, the iPhone in 2007, whether it was the iPad in 2010, it's always managed to, disrupt the industry. Now, the question is it, still doing that? And let's remember, what Apple we're looking at right now is the post-Steve Jobs Apple. It's a very different Apple right now. Because I don't know if you've seen the Steve Jobs movie that stars Michael Fassbender. He says, a musician plays his instruments, I play the orchestra. And I think that beautifully summed, I don't know if Steve Jobs actually said that or not, but it beautifully sums up Steve Jobs, because he was the person who brought it all together. Now, a lot has changed since he's passed away. Now we're looking at a very different Apple. And since the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus were launched, it's a very different game altogether, because those two phones were very big game changers for Apple, but not in the good way. Because for me, what the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus represented was basically that Apple wasn't innovating anymore. Because let's look at the main USP of both these phones. They had bigger displays. They had some other stuff as well, better design and everything, but those bigger displays were the main unique selling point. That's what Apple was selling, and it was selling it to people who were already buying into that, because the large screen sizes were being done by other smartphone manufacturers, and it was doing well. So Apple basically played to the crowd, and they came out with both these phones, and they said, here, look, we are listening to what you had to say, and we're now giving you bigger phones. Then what happened after that? You got the 6S, you got the 7, and you got their larger siblings as well. And since then, what have we seen that says revolutionary? For me, nothing at all. It's all been basically evolutionary. A few, upgrades here, a few upgrades there, a few nip and tucks here, and that's about it. So we haven't seen much from Apple in that context. Now, also let's take the example of the iPad Pro. Okay, the iPad Pro came, it was aimed at designers, and it came with something called the Apple Pencil. Now, you want to call it whatever you like, it's essentially a stylus, something that Steve Jobs said,
Absolutely.
and his exact words were, yuck. Who wants a stylus? So now you're looking at a very different Apple under the leadership of Tim Cook. Now the question is, to answer your original question, where are they headed? What is the future? For me, Apple's future lies beyond the iPhone. It lies beyond the smartphone space. They've already started doing this. They're diversifying to different product ranges. We're seeing smartwatches, we're seeing headphones, we're seeing all sorts of new, the HomePod, let's take that most recent example. So they are diversifying. Now, what they need to do is that they need to manage that. Okay, they need to have teams dedicated to that, and they need to innovate those products. And that, for me, is the way forward for Apple.
And second question is, competition is literally breathing down their neck. Okay, competition is not only from Samsung, it's from products and services far and wide. Tesla, Google, Amazon. You think this is enough to take on competition? The future of, we can say that, tech getting together with mobility. Anything? What's your comment on that?
Well, Apple's always going to have competition, whether it likes it or not.
But is it ahead of the competition, or is it enough to take on the competition now?
I don't think it's ahead, not anymore. I don't think Apple's ahead of the competition. Apple now is basically, for me, joining the party late all the time. Okay, even the HomePod proves that, because Amazon and Google did that, already there. They've taken out their products, they're already innovating it every day. They're going to make updates to it. But Apple's just started with this. The same thing with the Apple Watch. Smart watches were already there by Android. They existed in large numbers. They came out late with that as well. So Apple, at one point, we're talking about, let's talk about the 2007 iPhone or the 2010 iPad. They were ahead then, but now it's completely changed. The momentum is shifting to Android. The momentum is shifting to Windows. But that being said, Apple is still very powerful. they still have a lot of creativity left in them. That's what I feel. And for them to stay, ahead of the race, they have to start innovating again. And only time will tell if they'll be able to do it with the iPhone 8, which comes out, this will be the 10th year anniversary. Whether they even call it the iPhone 8 is debatable. But whatever comes out next, it has to be next level. Because if it is, you get 3 strikes. It's already got 3 strikes. Okay, 6S, 7, 3 strikes for me. You're not going to get a 4th strike, okay? So people have been very generous. So now Apple needs to come with something truly revolutionary with this next phone.
And Ankit, do you think the same, that is it enough to take on the mettle of competition that is not only limited to Samsung, but it's far and wide, ranging from Tesla, Google, Amazon to whatnot, autonomous cars. So do you think that it's really looking into the future, delving taking a deep dive into the future?
Before I come to the competition, Sumit, I want to say I clearly agree with Sahil. As I said, like Apple, so what's happening, Apple had the first mover advantage, and now they are banking on the past glory. And it always happens, whenever you have the first mover advantage, you manage to bank on the past glory for years, but not maybe after a point. And that's what Apple has come to a point. It has reached a stage where people have started to ask, what innovation are you going to bring next? And talking about the kind of products that Apple has been bringing. There was a time when Steve Jobs would make fun of a 7-inch device. It would always say that we need to stick to a particular size when it comes to a phone. But eventually Apple came up with this mini iPad. And as Sahil pointed out, the Apple Pencil for that matter, they made fun of the stylus and they came up with this. Clearly such instances show that the company is clearly lacking on the innovation front. And under the leadership of Tim Cook tried to bring a completely new product, and the Apple Watch was born. But what happened? It was a dud. It clearly failed to impress the audience, and it's really not doing well in the market. So under the leadership of Tim Cook, Apple is going down that drain in terms of innovation, in terms of sales, in terms of numbers. They might be doing really well. They are one of the market leaders in the industry. But in terms of innovation, no doubt that the company is clearly lagging behind. And talking about the competition, yes, other companies, be it Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they are going miles away when it comes to bringing new innovation to the market. Like Google recently opted for this project, the self-driving car. Then, and they have been working on it for years now. I mean, the company has been rebranded again. It's Alphabet was born, and then this self-driving company was renamed again. And in terms of like self-driving, they're actually working on it. Tesla is working. So other companies, the competition is clearly striving to make products more innovative, but when it comes to Apple, they're just bringing the old products, claiming that these are new products, and they have been managing to actually portray them as new features.
And Sumit, also, let's just very quickly just go back to WWDC 2017. Let's talk about the iOS 11. You briefly spoke about that. For me, that somewhat gives you a glimpse into the future of the next iPhone, because for me that was, you got all these really cool hardware that they launched as well, that they unveiled, but it was the iOS 11 that was the star, because they've made some really cool announcements there, okay? And it's giving some sort of a glimpse into the next iPhone. We're now talking about, better message synchronization. We're talking about a much more improved Siri. We're talking about a better control center. We're talking about better photo editing and video editing. But most importantly, they have started something for developers that's basically going to help in machine learning, right? It's going to help in augmented reality. And for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, Apple's future, or the iPhone's future, now lies in software more than it lies in hardware.
All right. This is all we had from our experts. Now this is time to take a break on Beyond Wallet.